We got this email, rad@radradio.com. It's from Chad.
Hi, Chad.
It says, on the note of being stuck with teenagers, I'm lucky enough to be an essential worker, and I get to leave the house. My wife and 15-year-old daughter are stuck with each other all day long.
Oh, no.
My wife has talked about putting our 15-year-old up for adoption, and I'm not sure she's kidding. With that, family law attorney Lana Shearer is here. First of all, I forget, how old are your kids? Are you locked in a home with any of your kids?
We are locked in. Yes, 15 and 17 are my two boys.
Good times?
Oh, it's great.
Are they?
Never been so grateful for technology in my life.
Are they driving you nuts otherwise? Are they going nuts rather than driving you nuts?
They are going nuts.
Are they
going
usually outside guys?
Constantly. Yeah. So my older boy, Nick, he is all about sports, anything with a ball, just wants to get out and play with a group of kids, and he can't. And it's driving him crazy.
Are they finding any way for that outlet, like shooting hoops by themselves? Is there anything that they can do?
I mean, they're trying as
Jump
much
rope?
as they can by themselves.
Tetherball.
They don't want to be by themselves. Those are group activities.
Yeah.
That's how you get your enjoyment out of them, and phically and mentally. So.
I'm going to avoid the obvious joke about 15 and 17-year-old boys spending time by themselves.
Oh, boy. Oh, God.
We've got lots to go over with
Lots of time
you.
in the bathroom. I don't get it. Why now? Sorry.
Now this is we'll see if this matches up to anything you're seeing, Lana, as we get started here. We have reports from around the country that cooped-up Americans are flooding lawyers' phone lines with divorce inquiries, with an avalanche of filings expected once the courts reopen. Now, depending on which state you're in, family courts already been open. We'll talk about what's going on in California and such.
Right.
Have you either seen personally or anecdotally heard of an uptick of people who are going insane and are like, you know what, when this is over, I need to get rid of this person?
I definitely think we're going to see a huge spike in divorce filings after this pandemic is over, as soon as the courts are open, frankly. Anyone that might have been on the fence, I don't know, maybe we could work it out. I think being confined is going to push them over. I actually got a really funny call last week where someone called me and I want to make an appointment for divorce. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. And then it's like, shut the fuck up. I'm like,
wait.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Now, what happened there was
I love that.
Lana was in the middle of a story.
That was amazing.
It was a quote.
And she was, and I don't know how much of it I had to block out, but here, let me start the story again.
Oh, my God, that is so fantastic.
In fact, let me finish the story to the point where you did, and then you can pick up. So Lana was talking about she expects an uptick in divorces when the courts reopen. She got a call from somebody who said, I want to make an appointment with you to file for divorce. And Lana said, oh, okay, great. And then in the background, Lana hears, I don't know if it was the caller or another voice.
It was the caller.
The caller who his face away from the phone and says, shut the F up.
Yes.
But for some reason, Lana finished the word on live radio. So we delayed her out. So after he yelled
fantastic.
that, was there more to the call? And can we air it?
And yes, you can. And
What are we going to do, sue her?
I said, excuse me? And he goes, oh, not you. That was my wife. I'm like,
Oh.
okay.
Yeah, you need that appointment.
Now, let's go back then to the premise of, because we had Kevin Huey, who you know, a couple weeks ago on, and when he was on, we got a lot of these family law questions, which is why I wanted to bring you on, because this is your bailiwick, because he wasn't sure. Obviously, he's busy with other stuff.
Right.
Are family courts in general open? Can we file? Let's start with this one. Can you file for divorce in California?
Not currently. You can mail it in, but they're going to be treating these days as holidays for court purposes. So Sacramento County Court is closed through April 16th. You can still mail everything in just as you normally would, but it won't be actually processed and deemed filed until the court is open.
So in California, it's different. Every state, we know that.
Exactly.
In California, it's 6 months and a day between when you file and when you can actually be divorced. So that 6 months doesn't start until?
There's going to be a delay. So because they're doing what they can, they're operating with minimal staff, and so they have to treat the emergency things first, which is domestic violence, elder abuse, the things that are super critical right now.
So domestic violence, elder abuse, those also border on criminal issues. Their family and their criminal. What about other more mainstream family law stuff? custody, child support. We have so many questions, so I'm giving you the blanket here before we get specific. What about those? Because those issues are always going on. Exes fighting with one another.
Always, constantly. So I'm a mediator, and never before has this message been more important than if there's any way, please try and work with your ex about those issues, because it's really hard right now to get the assistance of the court. There's ex parte applications. If something rises to the level of the threat of harm, irreparable harm is the threshold. So it's kind of a hard threshold to meet, but in those instances, if there's something going on and there's a threat of irreparable harm, you still can get an ex parte, which is an emergency application. They're still hearing this.
And how long are those taking longer than usual? Usually ex parte gets you in quicker, so it's still happening in 24 hours?
Exactly. So there's a new process, though. They have a Dropbox location in Sacramento for that purpose, and there's an email that you can send as well to get the ex partes heard. They are only about 30% of those are being granted right now, so keep that in mind.
Only 30% of ex parte requests?
Ex parte requests are actually being granted right now. So I just got the stats I was studying last night. So our family court has been amazing, by the way, through this process. I have never been more grateful to be part of this community. We're all helping each other and keeping each other informed, and then the judges are being super responsive and giving us guidelines.
And are you finding is that across most counties in the area? Placer, Yolo, everything.
Exactly. Placer County has been wonderful. Yolo County has been great. Everyone's really been giving us information we need to be able to do our jobs and advise our clients.
So if they're only granting, say, 1 out of 3 ex parte requests, I mean, ex parte, like you said, these are emergency requests. They're just making qualitative decisions as to whether or not we think this is an emergency?
Well, what one person may believe is an emergency may not be what the court deems to be emergencies. So you have to know that those are not often granted. So again, if you can work it out, it's just going to be a temporary, situation, a temporary fix. There's not going to be any harm to agreeing to a temporary fix. Right now, this is an emergency.
So we should back up a little bit, because you mentioned you're a mediator, and there's different ways of dissolving marriages. Divorce court, you've been a divorce attorney. Absolutely. You prefer mediation.
100%.
Because explain mediation in less than 60 seconds and without cursing.
Mediation is the exact same legal process, only the personal process is different because we meet together and work on everything together. We do all the legal processes. The spouses work together.
And you.
And me.
You and the spouses.
So me and the 2 spouses work as a team on everything that we do, and we work cooperatively. Not, we don't hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but we work together. We agree you're going to stay in the room. Even if you need a break, you go out. It's going to be uncomfortable. You go out, take a break, you come back to the room so that we can get everything done. In this without having to go to court.
Now, in this environment, if they already have a divorce settlement, they already have a custody arrangement or whatever, can they still call you as a mediator and say, we can't work this out with the courts, or we've got a real problem, and come into your office and do it that way under that guise?
Absolutely.
And they do it without bringing their old attorneys in to cause problems.
Exactly. Anything that you can do in court, you can do with a mediator, and then we submit all the documents, and they're made into formal orders. We still submit those to the court. But I'm handling a lot of those right now. And we're doing them by Zoom conference or telephone conference, since we can't have.
So you're not doing any in-office meetings. It's all done by teleconference because of social distancing.
I stopped that on March 17th.
And I'm sure people are curious, because most of the stories we hear, obviously, are the horror stories of people that don't get along, can't get along. They use kids as the weapons. I got some emails here. Right. Are you seeing that? I mean, do people like that even approach you? I mean, in other words, how likely is it that those individuals will call you?
Not likely. If you're high conflict, you're not likely to be using a mediator. But you're not going to get anywhere else. You're not going to get a lot of help right now. So either you're going to file for an ex parte. What if you get denied? This conduct that your bad behavior right now is still going to come into court later, and it will affect you. So calm down and try and work together if you can. It's going to go a long way towards showing the court, here's how I behaved during this emergency for the benefit of my children. It's not about you. It's about your children.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that gets me every time. I mean, I've had some toxic relationships in the past, but there were no children. I mean, I can see how you hate the other person and, there's that back and forth. Right. But I have a couple of friends, including my husband and his mom and dad. Like, they would tell you their marriage was not good, but they were able to, for the kids, and just be civil. I mean, one of our god kids in our family, oh, God, they hated each other in their marriage, but when it came time where they're like, this is going to be over, they just like, okay, I don't like this person, but this is who I had a kid with, so we're gonna be civil for the kid. So it's just always like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying not to judge, but I'm just like, how deep is that hate where you can't even come to some conclusion for the kid? Like, you can't even put yourself to the side. Like, yourself matters more than the comfort of this kid. It just blows my mind.
I'm sure you've seen it though, Lana. There are also instances where what one of these spouses is seeing or claiming is, no, this is for the good of my kid. This person is toxic. That's why I divorced them. And under these circumstances, the thing that I'm arguing over is for the good of the kid. And in some cases, you go, right. In other cases, you go, well, he or she has a point. But there's still those court orders that are in place that play into that whole thing. Which brings us to some of the questions. Phone number is 888-989-9811. This one's from loyal listener. A lot of people didn't want their names used. Says, my question is this. We're in the process of adopting our 12-year-old son. His hearing to terminate parental rights was scheduled for the first week in May. Are they still holding these type of hearings?
Emergency hearings like that, termination of parental rights is an exception. So, yes, those should go forward.
And if they're already scheduled, they should go forward as scheduled. They're not clearing the docket out?
However, they should go forward by telephone conference. So they're not doing in person. It should be a telephone conference and very limited in person. So I would absolutely call the clerk. I would check on with the we have an online program where you can check what's happening, and they've been really great. Sacramento County has a whole section just for it says COVID-19 across the top. Click there, and you're going to get all the notices. Read them. They're really important. But that is one of the exceptions that's still going forward.
Here's another one. Withhold my name.
Hey, person.
Says, my husband has 3 kids from a previous marriage and owes back pay. We have separate bank accounts, and he works full-time. The child support amount is deducted from his paycheck each period. Can the courts go after my income for child support at any point? She's worried because it looks like he's losing his job as part of the COVID thing.
Oh.
Short answer is no. You're not responsible. If they're not your biological children and you haven't adopted them, you're not responsible for their child support. That's the short answer. Now, if someone is doing it on purpose to avoid paying child support, that's a longer, evidentiary issue.
Now, we got a lot of questions like this over the last couple of weeks. If he doesn't pay for whatever reason, he can't, or he's trying to take advantage of it, the non-letter writer, the other woman, the mother of the children, in this environment, what recourse does she have? Can she still go to family court and say, hey, he stopped paying me, he's a deadbeat, or is that just going to have to wait?
So it has to wait unless it rises to the level of an ex parte. If there's she's not able to make rent, she's not able to buy food for the children that are residing with her, that may rise to the level of an ex parte, irreparable harm. You can't feed your kids. It may or may not. I'm not the judge of that. So you could file for an ex parte. But another really key thing right now is on a support modification, because this is happening a lot. People's incomes are being affected. You can file right now a request for order to modify with the court, and they are reviewing those.
So if you've lost your job as a result of all of this, and you're like, I've been ordered to pay whatever, $1,000 a month, I don't have it, you can file and say, we got to change the court order.
Yes, and that's a very special procedure. They just announced that on Saturday, actually, to the family law community. So it's new. Sacramento County is handling this as we go, day by day, literally. There's been 7 orders that have come out over the last 2 weeks. So that's a new procedure. You can file, make it very clear on your envelope, on your papers. This is a request for order for support modifications due to the COVID.
And is it true that in both of those examples, so that one about I got to modify pay, and then the previous example about irreparable harm because I'm not getting paid, in your filing for ex parte, I assume you have to show some pretty solid proof as to why you're asking for this. Otherwise, they're going to throw it out.
Of course. It has to be sufficient on its face. Don't count on being able to get in front of a judge and testify as to why you need it. It all has to be in writing, and that has to be enough.
Hello, Elizabeth. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Oh my
So
God.
I have a situation. My daughter's dad is a ex-deputy, and, he's actually retired now because he got shot. So he is abusing his authority once again, and I haven't seen my daughter since it's been going on 3 weeks now. Sorry, it's hard.
Sorry.
But he's saying that he's not giving her back to me because of the coronavirus, because I mentioned about taking her to church a couple of weeks ago. And, really just to pray for everybody, but anyway, so he hasn't given her back to me. And this is an ongoing situation with him. He's always abusing his authority. He's taken us on a car chase when she was a baby. It's crazy. And I went to his house with the deputy, of course, and they're saying, they made a report for me, and they took our information, and I went to go do it again, and they're like, we'll do it online. And, the officer told me just to do it online and this and that, and, to go and file, and it's a misdemeanor for him to violate court orders and this and that. And I still haven't seen my daughter.
So, Lana, we'll get to her specific thing in a minute. So many emails that we have. Of course, they always include the remarks towards the ex.
Of course.
But there's also varying stories of what law enforcement will or won't do. And there are tons of stories of one parent suggesting, and this is kind of what I was alluding to a few minutes ago, suggesting the other parent's a danger. You could do irreparable harm to my kid, and they'll use an example like, you're going to take her to church. We're being told not to go to church. We're being told to social distance.
Right.
Let's start with does she have any path to help?
So she does. What county are you in, ma'am?
In Merced County.
Merced? Okay. I'm not exactly sure with Merced, but go online first and look up and see if they have any regulations for COVID. I'm sure they do. However, our supervising judges have put out some guidelines for best practices for shared parenting. And number one is COVID is not a reason to withhold your children. We're going to assume each parent has the ability to parent their children. You should not withhold children. And I would be willing to bet almost every county in California is going to put in these same guidelines on their website. So it's absolutely not a reason. Now, they go into church. No, you can't go to church. Hopefully you know that. And if you did, then you would be possibly endangering your child, and therefore that might be a valid reason. So assure the other parent you're not going to go to church. You're not going to do anything that would be not in their best interest to increase their exposure. But that's not a valid reason. So you should be able to get assistance from the court. But also I would go on your county website, and if these guidelines are there, print them out, provide them to the other parent and say, look, now you're aware of this, that the courts are saying we should follow our parenting orders as they are. I'm not going to go to church. Give information that's helpful. And then if he continues to violate it, then yes, I would go in on an ex parte basis for custody.
And again, we got to remind everybody, Lana's speaking, it's county by county specific. So all of this needs to be checked with whatever county you're in.
Yes.
But your experience is, or you're hearing, most counties are lining up and doing the best they can, at least in the Northern California area.
Yes. Of the 4 or 5 surrounding counties we have, nearly everyone has posted this on their website now.
Here's a similar email we got that says, I have a court order that states I have visitation over the Easter break, which starts this Thursday. I live in Sac County. My ex lives in L.A. County. He has been trying for weeks to use the pandemic to keep me from having my visit with my kids.
God dang.
Can he legally do this? If I end up having to drive all the way to L.A. to get them and have to get the police involved, will they allow me to take my children home with me? We had this almost exact example when Kevin Huey was here, and Kevin, as a father, said, I wouldn't put my kid on a plane right now.
Right.
Which then begs the question about cars and all of that. What's the general reaction to this one?
So that's also in the guidelines. They've addressed that because we know that's a real concern. The governor's executive orders for travel say that travel for parenting is essential. So if you can do it in a way that is safe, if you can drive, do it. That would be safer. On a plane, of course, I would have a problem with that as well. But that is exclusively called out in parenting travel for exchanges is considered essential.
And in her example, he has them in L.A. County, and she gets them for Easter break. Who the onus of travel falls on her ultimately. She's the one that needs to get her butt to L.A. He does not. Is he bound to drive them to Sac County?
So whether he's bound to or not, it's really a practical matter. If you want your children, go get them. And
right, because if he doesn't drive them, what are you going to do?
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to. That's not going to get you anywhere. So you help yourself as best as you can. This is a unique situation. So employ whatever matters you can to get your children.
With the information given of the last one and this one, these are the petty situations I'm talking about. This just sounds petty on the adults, and we're not hearing like, oh, my wife beat them and I haven't been able to prove it, or what, you know what I mean? Like these extremes that I'm sure are out there that happen with people. This is like your little ego wants to have control, and this is your way of using your kids. This is
Everyone
But this is real life, everyday seeing things that people struggle with. And here's what I found is if you're going to act badly, if you were already inclined to act badly, this just gives you a great reason.
Well, I also think, though, that there is, we've been talking all morning about the hysteria and the fear, and this does, everybody has a different level. I mean, the woman who, I'm glad she listens, I'm glad she's a fan and all that, but the woman who very blasely says, I'm going to take my daughter to church to pray for everybody. If that's my ex-wife, hell no, you're not.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate reason as a father to go, pardon me?
Yeah, and maybe she had said that when it was still okay that we were doing that, right? And so, but now, hopefully, like you said, understands.
Right, or maybe she's an indignant bitch who's still going to take them to church.
There is that.
Hello there, Raul. I mean,
They can break those up legally now, right? You can bring the police in to break up church. How awful that is.
go ahead, Raul.
What's going on, Rad Radio?
Hey.
Hi.
My question is, I live in Nevada and Washoe County, and so my ex has not been doing her part of the custody agreement that we have. We have 50-50, and I've had him full-time, and I've had to pay everything. And for a while, I was still paying her child support, and she just finally took that off. But my question is, can I go and alter the custody agreement right now with the whole COVID-19? She's just pretty much being messed up and expects me to do all the legwork and is not doing anything to, like, you know, pick up and see her daughters. You know what I mean? So.
So you can file, and here's one of the things about filing is that even if you aren't going to get your court date right now, you should still file things by mail because filing gives you a date, especially for support, at which you can retroactively modify. So you can go back to that date of filing and say, I would like to be reimbursed for what I've had to pay up to the date that I filed. So people should still be filing things through the mail if they want to preserve that date. So for you, you're not going to get a hearing anytime soon. Nothing you say sounds like there's any emergency. There's no threat of harm to the children. But if you still want to file and request a modification, you should do that. And then if there's support involved, then you could possibly go back to that date and have it modified back to that.
Did I understand you earlier as well that when the country will reopen at some point and everything will get back to normal, and it's also good to have a record of you were behaving correctly, to be able to go in later and say, look, I know it doesn't help anybody that want to see their kid right now. For all of these examples, you want to see your kid for Easter break, etc. It doesn't help you get that kid, but you're suggesting that down the road, a couple months from now, when courts are back open, the ability to go in and say, look, I filed this, here's writing, I was doing everything right. Can we discuss this custody agreement? That's a big part of this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Your behavior right now is going to be really important, and I hope parents will listen to that. This is not a time to have bad behavior. This is not a time to be petty, not a time to withhold children. I mean, how you behave right now will affect you when you do eventually go back into court.
And to the caller, thank you, sir, for being a father for those girls. They'll always remember that you wanted to be in their life and you're being their father, and it's really too bad with their mother. It's awful.
Right, based on your version of the story.
Well, yes,
Hello
that's all
there.
I can go off of.
Ryan, good morning. Hey, I'm an equal opportunity
Morning, guys.
offender here.
Good morning, Ryan.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, good morning. So I separated from, actually we weren't married, so whatever I consider her. We separated back in November, got 2 kids, and age 6 and 10. Things started out okay originally with the 2 of us alternating times, etc. But the last couple months, she's pretty much reneged on everything and pulled back to where she doesn't want to let me see the kids except on the weekends.
So hold on.
I'm a weekend dad.
Hold on. Were you ever married and you're separated legally, or you're just separated from the mother of your kids?
We were never married.
And is there any type of written order in place about custody?
There is nothing yet. So especially with the COVID thing, I mean, granted, this isn't the reason for it per se, but I'm sure she's doing it additionally.
So I've been doing this too long with you to know how to fast track things and get some of the questions out there. So what's the basic
So
answer?
if there's no court orders in place, there's no violation of any court orders. If you wanted to file for and get your documents in with the court in order to get court orders, which I highly recommend, because after this is over, you need court orders. And it's not enforceable unless you have court orders. So get your court orders. But right now, encourage, and try and ask for your children and encourage her to allow you visitation. But legally, there's not a lot you can do right now.
She hasn't really done anything legally wrong, although she's shown him who she is, and that's why those court orders are so important when he can get back in there.
You just need court orders. You should have court orders, even if it's a stipulated court order. You reach it through mediation. You don't have to go in court and fight about it, but get a court order in place if you share children.